This video is about the concluding paragraph. There are three steps you should include in your conclusion. The first thing is to restate your thesis statement, right? That is to restate your topic and the purpose of your paper. And the second thing is to summarize the main points. What were the three main points in the body paragraphs that you presented? The third thing is to conclude memorably. Here you want to make some type of statement to finish strong, something that we're going to remember after we finish reading your paper. So you can make some type of prediction here or tell the reader to do some action, something like that. The book talks about 5 different methods, and we'll go over some of these methods later on in the video. If it helps you, you can think of a conclusion like an upside down introduction. The first thing in the introduction is a hook, right? It's something to get our attention. In the conclusion, the third and last step is to conclude memorably. This is something that's a strong statement, something that keeps us thinking about the topic after we finish reading your paper. The second step in the introduction is the background information. This is just general information to help us understand the topic. In the conclusion, you should summarize your 3 main points. This just helps us remember what were some of the main points. You don't want to add new information here. It's just a little summary to help us remember. The third step in the introduction is your thesis. This explains the main idea of your paper. The first thing you want to do in the conclusion, though, is to restate their thesis. That reminds us what was the main topic and the purpose of your paper. Let's go ahead and look at the first step in your conclusion. That is to restate the thesis statement. Here you just want to restate the topic and direction. So you can kind of think of it like paraphrasing, how we did paraphrasing in class. We want to change maybe some of the words and some of the sentence structure, but the meaning should be very, very similar to your thesis statement. Let's go ahead and look at how we might restate a thesis statement. Again, there are 2 different types of thesis statements. If you remember from our introduction video, there's a direct thesis and an indirect thesis. This example here is a direct thesis. It states that this paper will examine how the tremendous increase in the population over the last 3 decades in Seoul has caused an overwhelmed transportation system, terrible air pollution, and skyrocketing housing prices. Remember, a direct thesis statement directly tells the audience the 3 main ideas that it's going to present in the body paragraph. If I have a direct thesis and I restate this, what I don't want to do is just restate the same overwhelmed population, terrible air pollution, skyrocketing housing prices, because we're actually going to put that information into our summary. So what we're going to do is change it a little bit. We'll have in conclusion, which is a transition, the massive population growth in Seoul in the last 30 years has resulted in a number of negative factors. Those negative factors now we'll talk about in the summary part. If you remember, an indirect thesis does not state the 3 main points that it's going to present in the body paragraphs. So this is an example of an indirect thesis. It says the increase of people in Seoul over the last few decades has led to many negative consequences. The conclusion is just pretty much paraphrasing your own indirect thesis. Again, you just change some of the sentence structure and maybe a few words, and then you restate your thesis statement. This will lead directly into the second step. The second step is to summarize the main points. So again, just think about what were some of the most important ideas that you presented in your body paragraphs, and go ahead and just summarize your 3 main points once again. Just make sure you don't add new information. Some students like to add new statistics and new information here, but you don't want to do that. It's just very basic information, like these were the important things that you talked about in your paper. The third and final step is to conclude memorably. You can think of it again, this is similar to the hook in that it has to be something powerful. It has to be a strong statement. So it should be some type of statement that makes the reader think, or the reader can really feel the purpose of your paper in just 1 or 2 sentences at the very end of your paper. This is conclude memorably. Let's go ahead and look at the 5 different strategies that your book talks about to conclude memorably. Feel free to look in your book for examples, but let's go ahead and look at these together here. The first one is to make a prediction. A prediction saying what you believe is going to happen in the future. So for example, if people keep eating junk food like McDonald's, then the obesity rate is going to get out of control in the next 5 years. You can have some type of call to action. You're telling the audience they have to do something, right? So you can say, that's why we have to stop eating junk food like McDonald's and pizzas and things like that. You can give a warning. Warning is to be careful. So some type of action maybe that you're doing now. Even though you think it might not be harmful to eat a hamburger once in a while, it actually is contributing to your obesity and global warming, things like that. You can ask a question that should be something very interesting and thought-provoking. Some question that's forward-looking, something that when we read that question, it makes us think about that question after we've done reading your paper. The last one is a quote. A quote should be something that's very interesting and directly related to the purpose of your paper. Now, it doesn't matter which strategy you use, and actually you can use more than one strategy together. Like you can say, be careful, give a warning, and then make a prediction about the future. So these aren't exclusive. Feel free to mix and match different types of strategies to conclude memorably. The purpose, though, of conclude memorably is to finish strong. Some type of statement that's going to make us really think about your paper, even after we are done reading it. Let's go ahead and look at a sample for a conclusion. And this sample is actually on page 78 in your book. The first thing it says, in conclusion, right? We have a transition there. It says the massive population growth in Seoul in the last 30 years has resulted in a number of negative factors. That is restating the thesis statement, right? Now the next step is the summary. The summary is just going to quickly tell us what were the three main ideas that you talked about in your paper. So it says, as the population has grown, the number of cars on the road has increased proportionately. The burden on the public transportation system is leading to longer delays in travel time, which can then lead to rising stress levels. In addition, increasing pollution is choking the city and is a major concern for Seoul's inhabitants. Finally, with a greater demand in housing, prices are soaring across the city. Now, if you look at the summary, there's no statistics actually here. There's not a lot of really big facts or anything like that. All it is stating what was my main ideas, what were my three main supporting ideas to my thesis statement. The last sentence here is to conclude memorably, something that makes us think or finish strong a little bit. It states, many people have an exciting image of Seoul, but you must think about the facts before you sacrifice your health and well-being. So here, in this example, it's a warning, right? People might really want to go to Seoul, but wait. Just be careful. You have to actually think about things and think about your well-being. Is it worth moving to Seoul? So it's giving a warning to the audience. Again, this is just a basic example of a conclusion, something similar to what you might want to present in your paper.